Hi, everybody. I'm Art Granoff, and today I want to talk about psychedelic integration with archetypal intelligence, exploring the new healing paradigm for deep journeys, and the challenge, dear Psychonaut. Explore psychedelic healing with archetypal thinking? What's this about? Is it for me? What's the value? Why would a psychonaut want to develop archetypal intelligence? Non-ordinary state navigation, providing a framework for understanding and navigating non-ordinary states of consciousness. Offering a multidimensional understanding of psychedelic experience, which may enhance interpretation. And integration of experiences, integrating profound psychedelic experiences into one's daily life. You know, it's hard to build a house without a hammer. The hammer's been around for a long time, and thanks to its design, we can get many of the benefits after brief instruction. Though people who use hammers for their livelihood may reach 95% efficiency. Some tools are optimized for informal poking and casual use. As a result, more nuanced, sophisticated, and powerful tools are more challenging. Surfing doesn't have many participants because to have fun, it takes time. Mini golf, on the other hand, rewards casual first-timers. That's fine for a hobby. However, when we need solutions, it's a problem. As a result of this cycle, we may end up spending our days using tools incorrectly. It's easy to point at the tools instead of learning to use them. Archetypal astrology, a beginner's guide. Is there a lens that helps us find meaning in our lives, personal journeys, culture, and history? Archetypal astrology offers a system using symbolic patterns connected to planets. Does it help us understand our personal story? Yeah. The birth chart as a symbolic map of our potential reveals patterns or themes, suggesting natural strengths and challenges, showing inner tensions that may help us grow. There's the birth chart of Albert Hoffman. Planets as meaningful symbols. Each planet represents a basic human experience. Jupiter shows where we grow and find meaning. Saturn shows where we face limits and learn discipline. Uranus brings sudden change and new ideas. Neptune connects to dreams, spirituality, and letting go. And Pluto relates to hidden power and deep transformation. The planets themselves don't do anything to us. They don't send cosmic rays to affect our perceptions. Planets represent the largest symbols in our solar system. Planetary archetypes connect with our psyches synchronistically as they orbit the sun. Think of archetypes as energies that aren't born and don't die. They're mostly hidden, always around, and want us to party with them. We learn the system to decode, to befriend planetary archetypal energies, because we found out they want to help us. Is this why the system is as fantastic as the journey itself? A fresh way of seeing time suggests meaningful coincidences, not just random events. Views human history as part of larger cosmic patterns, and challenges the idea that time just moves forward without meaning. And how it works. Provides symbols that help make sense of experience. Shows hidden patterns in life events. Offers perspective beyond just personal history. For understanding history and society. When planets form certain patterns in the sky, similar themes may appear. These catalysts may connect to cultural movements, social change, shifts in how people think, and times of revolution or transformation. See over here on this graphic on the right, chart of today, September 12th, 2025. And we notice a couple of patterns right here. We see this planet in blue, Uranus, and this planet, blue, Pluto, are in a trine together. It's Uranus trine Pluto. And also we notice that the planets Saturn and Neptune are in a conjunction. They're right next to each other. And if we look at the general look of them, it looks as though we have a little mini triangle, eh? And two major outer planet alignments. Uranus trine Pluto, which I just mentioned, for 2022 to 2032, and Saturn conjunct Neptune from 2024 to 2027. What's this about? Well, if we look at this timeline right here, we notice that Uranus trine Pluto started around 2022, and if we continue, it looks as though it ends about 2032. And in the middle, we have Saturn conjunct Neptune right there. So as you see, these transits last a while. We can see also on September 12th, 1965, that was 60 years ago today, we had in the sky the Uranus and Pluto conjunction there, and a Saturn and Neptune trine. And today, we've got Uranus trine Pluto and Saturn conjunct Neptune. So what I'm trying to show briefly is that these planetary pairs repeat through time. Again, Uranus and Pluto alignments for over 100 years. And we see right here that in the early part of the 20th century, Joseph Campbell was born in 1904 and Albert Hofmann born in 1906. And that was the Uranus opposite Pluto aspect. Then Maya Angelou, the famous poet, was born 1928 with Uranus trine Pluto. Stan Grof, born 1931, Uranus square Pluto. And then a few years later, Bob Dylan, born 1941, Janis Joplin, born 1943, the sextile, Uranus sextile Pluto. And then the 60s, 1960s, Uranus conjunct Pluto. And we travel over to now, Uranus trine Pluto, 2022, 2032. Here's Maya Angelou, who's born with Uranus square Pluto and Saturn trine Neptune. And here's her poem, Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and just like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hopes springing high, still I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Upon a past that's rooted in pain I rise. I'm a black ocean, leaping and wide. Welling and swelling I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. And we see right here in the chart of Maya Angelou, we notice with her Uranus square Pluto and her Saturn trine Neptune. Uranus is about awakening, breakthroughs and innovation, and rebellion, liberation, and change. And Pluto is about power, rebirth, and intensity towards one's distinctive path. Together, they symbolize a fresh revolution, radical change, collective awakening, and intensified drive for freedom. Would you say that poem by Maya Angelou talks about an intensified drive for freedom? Also, Maya Angelou, Saturn trine Neptune in her chart. Saturn would be limitation, structure, reality, and discipline. And Neptune's idealism, spirituality, and transcendence. Together, building Saturn, dreams, Neptune, or tensions between what's ideal and real. I think Maya Angelou has transcended some boundaries there. Thank you, Maya Angelou. No one can change everything, but everyone can change something. If you choose to live a life with impact, it's in your control to do. Seth Godin. My journey to understanding LSD and other holotropic states resembled an exciting and challenging treasure hunt. Each finding the way pointed to the next clue. What happened to be an answer opened into another question. The last one, which is the most unexpected and promising, is the rediscovery of Greek philosophy and cosmology, the understanding of archetypal forms and of archetypal astrology. This was such an important step that I refer to archetypal astrology as the Rosetta Stone of consciousness research. And there's Stan Grof in 1985. Stan Grof, the major changes in my understanding of LSD can be divided into several periods. Taking medications to receive results. When Stan first started with LSD, he thought he was taking pills to achieve some results. Psycholytic psychotherapy, postnatal experiences, and COEX systems. In Europe, when Stan was starting out the first decade or so, people were receiving small to medium doses of LSD, and they would sit in the room with the therapist, and they'd be talking about things, bringing things up. Then when Stan moved to the United States in the late 60s, he engaged in psychedelic psychotherapy, increasing the dosage, laying down, eyes closed with music. And there developed a new cartography of the psyche, the perinatal experiences around birth. And then the transpersonal and world mythology, transcending individual experience. And archetypes and archetypal cosmology, the Rosetta Stone of the psyche. And there's Stan with Albert Hoffman, and Albert says, if I am the father of LSD, Stan Grof is the godfather. Archetypes across different frameworks. In Greek mythology, archetypes appear as gods, goddesses, and mythic figures that embody fundamental patterns of human experience and cosmic forces. Each archetype and pair as multivalent, expressing themselves in an affirming or negative way. Jupiter, expansion, good fortune, or personal inflation, hubris. Venus, love, beauty, or too vulnerable, heartache. Mars, assertion and courage, or forceful, aggressive behavior. Mercury, intellect and communication, or too logical, too much talking. Neptune, unity and harmony, or confusion, delusion. And Pluto, primal energy, finding one's voice, or lashing out in Hades, possessed. Greek myths explore how these archetypal forces interact, conflict, and transform through human experience. Each deity represents not just a personalized force, but a complex psychological pattern that continues to influence human behavior and cultural expression. Carl Jung redeveloped the Greek concept of archetypes as universal, primordial images and patterns inherited in the collective unconscious that organize human experience. Archetypes are innate, universal prototypes for ideas that may be used to interpret observations. They exist in the collective unconscious, a part of the unconscious mind, shared by all humans. Key Jungian archetypes include the self, the shadow, the anima animus, the persona, and the wise old man-woman. Jung saw archetypes as empty forms filled with imagery from individual and cultural experience. Archetypes cannot be directly known, but manifest through symbols in dreams, art, myth, and religion. They represent psychic energy patterns that structure our experiences and development. Stanislav Grof. Grof's archetypal perspective emerged from his work with psychedelics and holotropic breathwork. Archetypes as experiential patterns that become accessible in non-ordinary states of consciousness. They're organized in systems of condensed experience, COEX, emotional clusters around similar themes. Grof identified the four basic perinatal matrices, archetypal patterns related to the birth process that shape psychological development. He expanded the concept, including transpersonal archetypes that transcend individual experience. Archetypal experiences in psychedelic and holotropic sessions often relate to death and rebirth, cosmic unity, and encounters with divine or demonic entities. Grof emphasizes the healing potential of connecting with archetypes in therapeutic settings. And here's Grof's extended map of the psyche, larger version. We start right here with ordinary ego consciousness and personal unconscious right there, okay? Postnatal memories. Then we may slide down to the center of the hourglass, experience perinatal memories, memories around birth. So that correlates with the birth chart, the moment of birth. Then we may go further downtown to the transpersonal unconscious, down to the archetypal dimension. Richard Tarnas built on Jung and expanded his work by exploring how planetary movements correlate with archetypal patterns of human experience across history and individual lives, providing a framework for understanding both personal and collective transformative experiences. Tarnas synthesized archetypal theory with cosmology, particularly through reinterpreting astrology. Archetypes are both psychological and cosmological principles that connect inner and outer worlds. They are dynamic, multivalent patterns that cannot be reduced to single meanings. Planetary archetypes. Correlations between planetary movements may reveal archetypal patterns in human experience. Archetypes participate in human consciousness rather than causing effects. Examples include Saturn, limitation, structure, maturation; Uranus, awakening, revolution, and innovation; Neptune, dissolution, imagination, and transcendence; and Pluto, power, and transformation. Archetypes interact in complex combinations that reflect the rich textures of human experience. They work through synchronistic correlations rather than casual mechanisms. emphasizes the importance of archetypal astrology as a tool for understanding personal and collective psychological patterns. And there's Rick Tarnas, 1986, 40 years ago at Esalen. And the connection to Stan Grof's work. Stan's consciousness research with psychedelics and holotropic states, synthesized with Richard Tarnas's archetypal astrology shows. Themes in life often matched birth charts, world and personal transits. Individual and planetary pairs connect to specific types of experiences. Psychedelics often reveal themes relating to planetary positions. Again, Jupiter, expanding awareness. Saturn, facing limitations. Uranus, sudden insights or awakenings. Neptune, mystical, unified experiences. And Pluto, the death-rebirth cycle. The practical uses, understanding personal journeys within larger life cycles, recognizing deep patterns and challenging experiences, supporting integration after powerful sessions, and choosing good timing for transformative experiences. And why it matters, eh? Provides a framework for understanding consciousness, connects ancient wisdom with modern psychology, validates experiences that go beyond ordinary reality, and helps make sense of both personal and collective experiences. And Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas. We're going to feature a chapter overview through the archetypal telescope. Cosmos and Psyche establishes the foundational framework for archetypal astrology and includes key concepts that are explored in greater detail. The nature of archetypes. Tarnas builds upon Jung's concept of archetypes, yet offers a more dynamic understanding of archetypes as universal principles or forces that structure both human experience and cosmic patterns. The multivalent, complex nature of archetypes that can manifest across various dimensions of experience. Planetary archetypes, introduction to the planetary bodies as representing specific archetypal principles. Exploration of how these planetary archetypes manifest in human psychology and culture, and how these principles can be recognized across history, art, and individual experience. Archetypal combinations, how planets in relationships create complex archetypal combinations. The importance of understanding archetypes, not in isolation, but in dynamic relationship. Examples of how these combinations manifest in psychology, culture, and historical periods. And synchronicity and archetypal cosmology. The development of Jung's concept of synchronicity in relation to astrological correlations. Exploration of the relationship between human experience and celestial patterns. Discussion of meaningful coincidence as a principle underlining archetypal astrology. And collecting and analyzing historical and biographical data. The importance of rigorous correlations between celestial configurations and historical patterns. Discussion of the challenges in establishing this approach within contemporary intellectual frameworks. And the philosophical implications, how archetypal astrology challenges modern assumptions about causality and meaning. The implications for understanding human consciousness in relation to the cosmos, and the potential for a more unified worldview that bridges scientific and humanistic perspectives. The connected work of Grof and Tarnas. Their 50-year collaboration represents a powerful synthesis of experiential psychology, consciousness research, and ancient wisdom. They discovered a comprehensive framework for understanding both individual experiences and collective patterns through what has become known as archetypal astrology. Grof and Tarnas began working together in the 1970s at the Esalen Institute in Big Sur. Their effort emerged from Grof's extensive clinical research with psychedelics and later with holotropic breathwork. Tarnas's philosophical investigations into consciousness and cultural history. Their shared interest in exploring the deeper patterns underlying human experience, and a mutual recognition that conventional paradigms were inadequate to explain the full spectrum of consciousness. And we see this graphic here, the 4 basic perinatal matrices. In the early years of psychedelic research, many people were reporting to Stan that during their session, they were having experiences that were similar to reliving their birth. And then Stan had them as well. And then he, through time, devised the 4 basic perinatal matrices. BPM1, the amniotic universe. Everything seems to be okay. Before delivery, everything seems to be fine, eh? And then the second matrix, BPM2, the cosmic oppression. Things don't look too good there, huh? Kind of stuck, can't get out. And BPM3, the third matrix, the struggle, the death rebirth experience. Trying to get out of there, more intensity, awaiting the cervix to open. And then BPM4, the experience of death and rebirth, the victory, we made it. In their collaboration, Grof provides the BPMs while Tarnas provides the archetypes. Rick Tarnas found out that BPM1, the amniotic universe, resembles in astrology the planet Neptune, relating to spiritual union, no boundaries, what's ideal. He found out that BPM2, the cosmic oppression, resembles Saturn, being stuck with no exit. Tarnas discovered that BPM3, the death rebirth struggle, resembles Pluto, the long journey to freedom, propulsion through the birth canal, intensity becoming spiritual rebirth, leading to renewal, revitalization. And then BPM4, the 4th matrix, the death rebirth experience. Tarnas found out that BPM4 resembles Uranus, sudden change, release from custody, emancipation. And here's the world transits of the day. And I just want to show you right here. Well, actually, this was from the 7th, the other day on the full moon, the sun opposite the moon. We notice Uranus is in a trine with Pluto, and Saturn is conjunct Neptune. And the 4 of them are all together, just like the 4 BPMs. Must be important. Key contributions. Archetypal astrology is a map for non-ordinary states. Planetary transits may correspond meaningfully with the content and quality of psychedelic and breathwork sessions. The timing of psychological breakthroughs and challenges. Patterns of spiritual emergence and emergency. And periods of psychological transformation and healing. Now we may employ planetary transits as a map for navigating non-ordinary states of consciousness, providing context and meaning to experiences that might otherwise seem chaotic or overwhelming. Archetypal intelligence may help integrate several challenges arising from psychedelics post-session. Countering archetypes. In psychedelic states, we may encounter archetypal figures or experiences. Understanding these through an archetypal lens can provide meaning and context. Fear of the unknown. Archetypal understanding can help contextualize the fear after encountering an unknown presence during a session. Self-perception. As psychedelics change one's sense of self, archetypal intelligence can provide a framework for understanding shifts in self-perception. Integration of transpersonal experiences. Applying archetypal thinking intelligence helps in making sense of transpersonal or mystical experiences, often encountered in psychedelia. Spiritual crisis. Planetary archetypes may aid in navigating and understanding spiritual crisis that may arise from intense sessions. And by developing archetypal intelligence, psychonauts go deeper, potentially leading to more meaningful and transformative journeys. How it works. The 3 forms of correspondence. The birth chart on the left represents the positions of the planets at the exact moment of one's birth. Birth charts explore the foundational archetypal patterns or core themes that shape one's life. They provide windows into personal strengths, challenges, and potential direction, supporting self-discovery and personal growth. And the question is, how does exploring one's birth chart provide a unique window for personal insight and self-knowledge? Then we have the world transits, which examine current planetary positions, providing context for collective historical events, cultural shifts, and psychological phenomena. World transits highlight essential archetypal patterns worldwide, discovering how planetary cycles may parallel major cultural movements, technological breakthroughs, and transformations. How do world transits offer me insight into daily events and history? And personal transits track the ongoing movement of planets in relation to one's birth chart. Personal transits may reflect the timing of significant periods in life events, highlighting periods of growth, challenge, and renewal for life's transitions. They help us predict archetypally. Outer planet personal transits may offer keen insights for psychonauts. And the question is, for post-journey integration, what's the value of exploring one's personal transits? And here's the birth chart. The position of the planets relative to the date, time, and place of my birth are regarded as significant to my life. The birth chart reflects specific archetypal dynamics and relationships expressed by my particular psychological tendencies and biography. For developing archetypal intelligence, a birth chart reading may be the first step. And there's the chart of Stan Grof on the right. World transits, the positions of the planets relative to the Earth at any given time, may significantly mirror the state of collective archetypal dynamics visible in specific historical and cultural events. Thus, a second source for exploring planetary archetypal dynamics. Planetary archetypal pairs repeat through time. As an example, we see here on the left, September 12th, 1965, and on the right, today's date, September 12th, 2025. It's a 60-year spread, hey? So we see on the left here, on the bottom, Uranus and Pluto are in conjunction. And we notice also that Saturn was trined with Neptune. Okay, the 4 outer planets were together. And today, September 12th, we notice we have Uranus in blue trined with Pluto and Saturn conjunct with Neptune. They repeat through time. And again, we see here Uranus and Pluto. Uranus is awakening, breakthroughs, and innovation, change, and Pluto's power, depth, and rebirth. Together, they symbolize a fresh revolution, radical change, and intensified drive for freedom. Oh, one might say that's what's happening now, a little bit in the sky. And right there, Uranus trine Pluto. And there's Saturn conjunct Neptune. Saturn about limitation and boundaries, reality and discipline. And Neptune's about idealism, spirituality and transcendence, or confusion. And together, building Saturn, dreams, Neptune, or tension between what's real and ideal. Well, if we look in the news, every day is pretty challenging because it seems as though something is this one day, then tomorrow it's something else. Then it's like this one day, and it's like something else the next day. So it's easy to become confused. Two planetary pairs together in the sky to 2027. And personal transits activate the archetypal potential symbolized in the birth chart. The transiting planet's positions to the birth chart at any specific time may relate to certain experiences of a person at that time. Personal outer planet transits offer essential integration material for psychonauts. And the personal transit lengths. The moon transits last a few hours. The inner planets, the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, last several days. Jupiter and Saturn last longer, several months, up to a year. And Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto last several years. And generally speaking, the longer the transit, the larger the impact. And how do these forms of correspondence help us anyway? Well, archetypal intelligence is generally recognized as the capacity to work with universal patterns, symbols, archetypes that shape our experience at personal and collective levels. We may gain symbolic self-reflection and pattern recognition. Provides a symbolic language, planets, aspects, and transits to help us recognize recurring motifs in our life and the world. The birth chart reveals treasures, challenges, and life themes as expressions of universal patterns. Narrative reframing and meaning making, recognizing personal struggles as chapters in a larger archetypal narrative, offering the ability to face difficulties as meaningful encounters with universal themes. Overall, the three forms encourage an integrated view of life, suggesting that individual and collective experiences are meaningfully connected to planetary cycles. And by recognizing and aligning with these patterns, we may find more perception, sensitivity, and freedom. Integration of inner and outer worlds, symbolic language for inner experience. Archetypal intelligence provides a rich symbolic framework for understanding and articulating non-ordinary states, supporting integration back to daily life. Active participation in meaning making. Engaging with these guides, we may recognize the unfolding narrative of the universe rather than being a passive observer. Attunement and agency, understanding the timing and nature of archetypal influences may help us navigate journeys with greater awareness and agency, even turning challenging experiences into opportunities for growth. Through developing archetypal intelligence, we gain practical tools for self-discovery, timing, and integration. Thanks for joining me, everybody, talking about psychedelic integration with archetypal intelligence. I'm Art Granoff.